Hey Julian Mustangs, this is the Math Sprava Review for May 13th, and this is your host, Miss Otter. We're going to go ahead and get started. The first problem is just a simple addition. Make sure that you line up and that you start in the ones place. So 5 plus 5 plus 3 is going to be 13. Put down the 3, regroup the 1. I'm doing 1 plus 9 is 10, plus 8 is 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. So I put down the 2, regroup the 2 to the next column. 2 plus 2 plus 2 is 6, and 6 plus 9 is 15. Put down the 5, regroup the 1. 1 plus 1 is 2, and 2 plus 4 is 6. So the answer is 6,523. Next, select all the expressions that have a product of 180. Product means answer to a multiplication problem. So I'm going to go ahead, because it's double digit by double digit, and we have not expressly learned the shortcut way to that, I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to do a box. And this will work for all of my problems so far. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut it up into 4 pieces. And I'm going to break apart 12 into 10 and 2. And I'm going to go ahead and break up 15 into 10 and 5. And I'm going to go ahead and multiply those together. So 10 times 10 is 100. I'm going to drop down. 10 times 2 is 20. 10 times 5 is 50. And 5 times 2 is 10. I'm looking for a product of 180, so I'm hoping that when I add up 100 plus 50 plus 20 plus 10, it gives me 180. 5, 6, 7, 8, and it checks out. So A is going to be a possible answer. Go ahead and erase. Okay, the next one, it looks a little challenging, but all you have to do first, I'm going to zoom in here. You take and multiply 5 times 3 first, you can get 15. And then you multiply 4 times 3 and get 12. So what we're doing here is we're multiplying 15 by 12. If we look at the problem before that, we did the same thing. So with the math properties, we can switch up the 12 and 15 and it will still equal the same thing, meaning I can do 12 times 15 or 15 times 12 and still get that magic answer of 180. So B is also correct. Now, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to think through this a little logically. I know that 15 times 12 is 180. So if I have 15 times 24, which is way more than 12, I know that that's going to give me an answer much bigger than 180. Just knowing that 15 groups of 12 gives me 180. 15 groups of 24 is going to give me something much bigger. So I know that C is not going to work out. When I'm multiplying 19 times 20, again, I can probably assume that this one's not going to work out as well because it's bigger than 12 and this one's bigger than 15, but we can go ahead and give it a shot and make sure. I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to break this up into 2 boxes this time. I'm going to put my 20 on the side. I'm going to break up my 19 into 10 and 9. So 20 times 10 is going to be 200. And then 20 times 9 is going to be 180. Already I see that I have to add up these two numbers. 180 is the number I'm trying to get to. So if I add a 200 on top of that, I'm going to get 380, which is way too big. So this is also not going to be a correct response. When I look back here, remember, we always multiply the things, in parentheses first, and then we multiply those numbers together. So I'm going to multiply 3 times 5, which is 15. And then I'm going to just drop this sign down. And then I'm going to go ahead and multiply 3 times 12, which is 36. Again, I can make this assumption that because 15 times 12 was exactly 180, 15 times anything bigger is not going to give me 180. So I'm going to go ahead and cross that off and let you know that the only 2 correct responses that are going to give you a product of 180 are A and B. Okay. Moving right along. Next problem is find the difference between these 2 fractions. Fractions look kind of funny when they're sideways like this, but if I took and wrote them straight up and down, I could easily see what I have to do here. So I see that both of my denominators are 8, which is great. This makes this super easy, and I'm just going to leave my denominator 8. When you're adding or subtracting fractions, if the denominators are the same, you'll leave them the same. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my 7 minus 5. So 7 minus 5 is 2. And so the difference between 7/8 and 5/8 is going to be 2/8. That's it. All right, this one's a little bit trickier, perimeter and area. A rectangular library has a width of 34 feet and a perimeter of 188 feet. What is the length in feet of the library? So some key things to note here. It's a perimeter of 188 feet, not the length, okay? But we do know that it's a width of 34 feet, which is good to know. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to draw it out because I always think it's helpful to draw something like this out so I can visualize it. Okay, so what we were given is we were told that it has a width of 34 feet and its perimeter is going to be 188 feet. So what that means is that this side plus this side plus this side plus this side is going to give me a total of 188, not multiplying. So because this side is 34 feet, I can assume that this opposite side over here is also going to be 34 feet. So what's left for me is to find what this top number is or this bottom number. Either way, though, they should be the same. So the first thing I'm going to do is take my total, okay, which is my perimeter. I'm going to subtract what I know. What I know is 34 plus 34. So I know that I'm going to take and subtract 68. Okay, this is what I know so far. All the others, the x's, are my unknowns. So I'm going to subtract these two and find out what's left. So when I subtract, 8 minus 8 is 0, 8 minus 6 is 2, and 1. So what I have left is 120. What this means is that this side plus this side has to equal 120 in order to make this equation work. So in order to easily find this out, I'm going to take 120, I'm going to divide it by 2. Some of you may be able to do this in your head by looking at the 12 and then the 0 at the end. So 2 fits in 12 6 times. 6 times 2 is 12. Subtract. Bring down your 0. 2 fits in a 0 0 times. 2 times 0 is 0. Subtract. You have nothing left. So each side is going to equal 60. So what is the length and feet of the library? 60 feet. Okay? And that was because I took the total of 188, subtracted what I know. I got this 68 because I added up 34 plus 34 and took what's left over. This 120 is what the length was left over for this side and this side. So because I had two sides, I took this new total and divided it by 2 to get 60 for each side. Okay, next. Oh boy, I love decimals, and it even has a place value chart for you. It says use the example to finish the rest. So example, 3 decimal 25 or 3 and 25 hundredths, and it even shows it right here for you. 3 decimal 25 or 3 25 hundredths is the same thing as 3 25 hundredths. So your job is to do the same with these down here. So 3 decimal 50 is going to be 3 and 50 hundredths. Another one here for or could be 3 and 5 tenths, okay? And that's because there's a 5 in this tenths place and nothing in the hundredths. So either one is correct. And last but not least, you have 3. So you have that whole number 3, and then you have 75 hundredths. And the reason why I know that's hundredths is because that 5 is in the hundredths place value, okay? So I have 3 and, oops, not 25, 75 hundredths, and that's all you had to do. You could also do that if you took number 2 and you put it up here. You would have 3 whole ones and you would have decimal 25, so you would say this 25 hundredths because the 5 ends in that hundredths place value. All right, and last but not least, draw a shape that has parallel lines. You guys got this. This should be super easy. It can be a lot of different things. You could have drawn a square. You could have drawn a rectangle. You could have drawn a trapezoid because it has one pair of parallel lines right here. There were so many different things. If you guys come up with something else like a parallelogram, oops, let me do that. That would also work. Whatever it is, as long as the lines are parallel, meaning that this line will never touch this line, or this line will never touch this line, or this line will never touch this line. That's what parallel means. Draw a shape with perpendicular lines. Perpendicular means that it makes a 90-degree angle. So you could draw a square. because it has 4 90-degree angles, meaning this line is perpendicular to this line. You could draw a rectangle, which this line is perpendicular to this line, making that 90-degree angle. You could not draw a trapezoid because there are no 90-degree angles, so that's not going to work. You could draw, I'm trying to think, a right triangle because it makes a right angle, so this line and this line are going to be perpendicular. As long as I see a 90-degree angle on your shape, you can make something really wonky. You can make this, do something like this and show that that's a 90-degree. As long as you have a 90-degree in that shape somewhere, it's going to work out for you. All right, my friends, that is it for the May spiral review for May 13th. Hope you enjoyed.